Hi everybody, my name's Dave. Thanks for joining me. As you can clearly see, I'm back home. You probably gleaned that from the video I did yesterday and posted last night. I did actually get out camping. I stayed one night out. I did about 300 kilometres around the high country, but the engine kept cutting out. Now the RPVC is misbehaving, so I'm hoping it's going to be that. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm just about set up, ready to go. It's pouring with rain, so I've got the front of the car in the garage. Let's go. Alright, for those of you who don't know, the RPCV is this here, with this wire going onto it. Can you see that? You see the wire there that I'm poking around with a stick? The RPCV is directly behind it there. I've got my magnetic thing on it. Let me see if I can zoom you in a little bit. Right, where's the stick? There. Alright, so you can see the RPCV cable there. There's the nut behind it right there. Let me see if I can get this cable out of the way. End cap and the witch's hat next to it, and then the coil. That cable is the coil cable. Also, another thing that happened to me while I was away is all the locking mechanism of the hook fell off. I've had that 5 years, that winch, and the mechanism fell off. I've ordered a new hook, so that should come by 7th of December. Okay, the nut on the end of the RPCV, 19 millimeters. Remember that because you'll need it. The next thing to come off is the top hat. The top hat is a spacer that goes between the nut and the coil, and you're going to do a lot of this with this job, a lot of it, and these are extra tough gloves as well. The next thing to come off is the coil. Now this one is pretty oily. I suspect that this might be the problem, but I just don't know yet. I'm going to have to try and test it. Alright, for those of you who are not aware what an RPCV is, that is one there. This is the 19mm nut that comes off first. There's the top hat, spacer, and this is your coil. Then that is an RPCV. Now this will split down further. You can remove this off the end here, and it will split down further. That's the bit that needs cleaning out. That's got the little bits inside. I can't show you it just yet unless I do a split down. Now I've got this is another coil. Now my coil measures 10.1 ohms, so I'm going to measure this coil. This one measures 10.4 ohms. Try another one, 10.3 ohms. So it looks like the coil is okay. Now it could be breaking down under load. For instance, I've got 5 coils. I'll just check this one, just to make sure that the other ones aren't all faulty. That one measures 0, so that's not right. 10.3 ohms. Might as well do this last one while I'm in here. 10.1 ohms. But currently mine's measuring around about 10.1 ohms. 10.5 ohms. I will change it. It could be breaking down under heat, so I will change it, but at the moment it's not looking favourable for the coil, so I might be stripping down the RPCV. Bear with me a sec while I put my fan on. It's too warm. I've got to find it. It's over here, isn't it? I'm too warm already. Now I'm going to put this coil on. They have a serial number on them. No, the numbers are different, aren't they? So they must have a serial number because all the numbers seem to be different. Well, I don't know whether to, while I'm in here I might as well strip down the RPCV and give it a good clean out. So, as I was showing you before, this is the part of the RPCV that needs to be stripped and cleaned. Now this is a damaged one, so that's no good. The one I've got on I'm going to have to be very careful with because it's the only one I have. Well, hello everybody. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to take out the RPCV, give it a clean, put it back in. I couldn't do it the other day because I was waiting for this 21mm spanner, because that's what that takes, and I didn't have one. I had a socket, couldn't get it on, but I didn't have a spanner, so now I've got a spanner with a ratchet end, so I can put this on over the top and remove and I can use a ring spanner on that end if I need to extend it. This is the RPVC coil, spacer or top hat and nut that holds them together. So the point of this nut is it screws onto there and holds that and that in place. Right, here we go. So I've just given this a good squirt down with a dab of brake cleaner. There's two O-rings on here. There's like a Vitron O-ring and then a spacer. There should also be another O-ring here at the top there. I'm going to take my gloves off because you can't see where I'm pointing. So there's an O-ring here, there's another Vitron O-ring here, and there's a spacer in there, and that will have to go in a certain way around. So let's remove them and see if we've got a replacement. Now I have a box of Vitron O-rings here from Champion. I don't know if any of them will fit, but we'll have a go. Let's get these bits off. I'll tilt you up a little bit so you can see. This O-ring seems to have gone a bit hard, so I suspect that this probably needs changing. Getting it off's not that easy either. Please bear with me a minute while I just remove this. Alright, so that's one Vitron O-ring. It's a bit dirty in here. There we go. And then this little piece of plastic in here, if you can see that, there's a split in it so it will come out. Don't break it. I mean, if you've got another one, break it, but if you haven't, then now let's have a quick look at this, see what's what with it. Okay, so it has a concave side and a flat side, so the concave side goes to the O-ring obviously. Now then, what have we got? Well, we've got one of those by the look of it. We're very close. So that's one, and have we got one of these? Not this thin. I have two sets of Vitron O-rings, and this one has one for that, and that one has one for that. Slightly smaller, but not far off. But anyway, that's those two. And the old O-rings are, so we need that. We don't need that, and I don't know what I've done with the other O-ring. Seems to have got rid of it, so anyway, it doesn't matter. Oh, it's there underneath. So the green ones are the ones I don't need. They're probably originals. What you've got to be careful of is that you don't crush this tube. As you can see, it's already been opened, but you're probably better off using something in these holes than you are trying to grab that with something. Well, that didn't work. All I did was pierce my thumb. I brought one of my new drill bits for no reason whatsoever. Okay. So now we're taking this bit apart. I'll show you in a sec what you need. But there's a pin in the end there, so be careful. This pin here is a bit bigger than this one, but it's still small. So you've got a screwdriver slot in there which you use to undo it, to tighten it up and undo it. And then that comes out. And this is the piston that gets operated by the coil. Now this piston should come out of here, but I've never had this one out, so. There we go. So I'll give that a clean so you see that. Now, you can see there's a big hole in one end and a little hole in the other. That's to stop. That's to stop the piston from slamming into one end. Now if I look in this bag of spares, wherever that's gone, I thought I'd put it in here. Maybe not then. Maybe I didn't put it in there. So if you've got a piston like this one, with a big hole in one end and a small hole in the other, that's an original. And there's another one, original. However, in the aftermarket ones, there are some odd designs. Now if I can find one, I'll show you. I know there's one in here somewhere. Ah, here we are. So this is an aftermarket one, and you can see instead of having the holes, sorry, I've just picked up a bit of fluff off the carpet. Instead of having the holes in the end, it's got these flutes. That's an aftermarket one. That's a different design, and I don't recommend using that, to be fair. I had one in my car that somebody had put in and it didn't last that long. So the best thing to do now is to just give all the components a clean. This little pin at one end is sharp, and unlike this one, which is the same at both ends. You've got to make sure that one goes in the correct way around. I'll show you that in a minute once I've got this all cleaned out. Still a bit dirty in there. Now there are some bits and pieces coming out of there, so maybe this was the problem after all. Can't guarantee it, but maybe it was. I just had a torch, there it is. Yeah, it's still not as clean as it could be. Probably a lot better. Now this is going to fill up with engine oil eventually, but if it was me, I'd be putting it together with a bit of silicone grease, just to give it some lubrication before the oil gets in there. Silicone grease will wash out, but other bits won't. Just give it a bit of lubrication. Now then, which way around does it go? Does it go big hole in first, or does it go little hole in first? Well, I think it goes big hole in first, but we'll just double check on that. I should have a drawing in here. If not, I'll go and get one. Alright, just bear with me a minute. I'm just going to go in the house and print off a diagram. Alright, we've got this diagram here. I'll put this below, I'll put a link to it. That tells you how to reassemble it. It's been made by somebody else, but I'm not sure who. But it really needs updating. Anyway, so the big hole that goes in first, like I thought. Put a bit more silicone in there, just to keep it moving. And then you've got this component here with the screwdriver end goes in and it screws in. You'll need a fairly big wide flat screwdriver blade to cut across the entirety of that. Just screw that down till it stops. Don't go too tight with it, don't go mad. But it does go in quite a way. Make sure your piston's still loose. Give it a quick spray of silicone in the middle. Put your pin in, doesn't matter which way around the pin goes, as long as the pin's in. It's all good. Right, now you need your other bit, and the tiny little pin which has disappeared. Where's that gone? There it is. Now the tiny little pin has the flat to the top, so you should end up with something a bit like that, with a flat bit sticking out the top. And then they screw back together. Make sure your piston still moves. And put this O-ring on. I always use a bit of silicone grease because silicone grease doesn't hurt O-rings. Now one thing I did lose off my build yesterday was the rubber seal that fits over the coil injector electrical plug. So I don't know what I'm going to do about that yet. Now the coil goes on this way because it fits over that there and points backwards, and then the top hat goes on, and then you wash it, your nut goes on, you screw on nut like so. I might change that nut, I don't know. Another one here. This nut seems a bit more substantial than that one, so I'll use this nut. Now you can't assemble it like this, you've got to take it apart because you need to put the special tool needs to go over here and engage in there so you can tighten it up. Now I've got a brown O-ring in there and I've got a black O-ring in there, they should be good. Alright, we're going to refit